think give it 30 more seconds and then we can go ahead and kick it off. Give it 30 more seconds and then. All right, now that the numbers look steady, I'll go ahead, pass it to Hario, who will welcome everyone to the meeting.
Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the live virtual design public hearing. My name is Hario Lamart. I work in the project management section at the Massachusetts Department of Transportation's Highway Division headquarters in Boston. I am the project manager for the proposed Reading Oakland Road at Reading Memorial High School and Coolidge Middle School, SRTS project, which will be presented tonight. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an assured method whereby the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to furnish to the public information concerning the state highway construction proposal and to afford every interested resident of the area the opportunity to be heard on the proposed project. Also, this meeting affords the Commonwealth the opportunity to receive information from local sources which will be of value to the state in making decisions as the design progresses. First, we would like to present some procedural elements of a design public hearing and review the functionality of the Zoom software. Miranda, one of the producers for this evening, will present this information. Miranda?
Thank you, Ariel. So we'll go quickly over your Zoom webinar controls. Your camera and microphone are automatically off when you join this webinar. And if you have any technical difficulties, you can call the Zoom support number at 1-888-799-9666. To ask a question or share comments, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will go over all of them at the end of the presentation, but you can feel free to drop questions throughout the presentation. When we get to the Q&A portion, you'll be able to raise your hand. If you're dialing in on your phone, you'll hit *9 to raise your hand. And if for some reason you have technical problems and you want to dial into the meeting, you can use the number 1-646-931-3860 and use webinar ID 815-0311-6005. Closed captions are automatically generated by Zoom, so they might not be completely correct. A quick note on MassDOT's public meeting procedures. This virtual public hearing is being recorded. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation may choose to retain and distribute the video, images, audio, and/or chat transcript. All parts of this hearing are considered public record, and by continuing attendance with this virtual public hearing, you are considered to participate in a recorded event. If for any reason you're uncomfortable being recorded, you can continue to keep your camera off and not raise your hand or participate in the Q&A, or you can choose to excuse yourself from the meeting. Like I said previously, your microphone and webcam are automatically disabled, but when we get to the Q&A, you'll be able to raise your hand and ask a question. We welcome all questions and comments. We do ask that you refrain from any disrespectful comments throughout the Q&A portion of the meeting. And a quick notice on MassDOT's policy on diversity and civil rights. All MassDOT activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. MassDOT complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements preventing discrimination based on sex, race, color, ancestry, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or veteran status. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area, and if you have any questions or concerns, you can visit mass.gov/non-discrimination-in-transportation-program to reach our Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. Thank you so much for joining the meeting. We appreciate your participation. Back to you, Mario.
Thank you so much. So, during this presentation, we will explain the purpose of this project, define the project goals, and develop the preferred alternative for two 11-foot wide travel lanes and parking space along Oakland Road, including a 10-foot shared use path with a 6-foot minimum buffer, bicycle and pedestrian accommodation. So, as you could see on the agenda, we have the presentation of the participant as the first step, and after that, we will go to the how did you get here, the project initiation, the project goals, alternative analysis, preferred alternative, widely impacts, bicycle and pedestrians, environmental permitting, construction, next step, and contacts. And finally, we'll have the question and answer at the end. So now, let me welcome the team members who have joined me this evening. I'm Igor Lamotte, the project manager assigned to this project, and I have with me a Nancy Knight, the community compliance officer. We have a Aditoin Alawi and Miranda Vicino is our producer, producer for tonight. We have with us a Daniel Fury, the District 4 project engineer. For the town of Reading, we have a Christopher Coles, the director of public works, and Ryan Percival is a town engineer, and the design engineer is a TEC. We have with us Michael Dobie, PE. He will be the presenter for this meeting tonight. So we're expecting as well a Dan Fielding from the Government Affairs very shortly. So now we done with that. So let us move on the substance of the presentation. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Chris Cole from the town of Reading to speak about this project benefits for the town of Reading, and also talking about the larger master plan. And after that, he will present the desired Mike Dobie. So, Chris, is your turn.
Thank you, Mario. So the town of Reading is very excited about this project and the benefits it brings to our residents, in particular the students. While the focus of this project is the area in front of the Reading Memorial High School, it contributes to the larger plan of increasing pedestrian safety and reducing vehicle speeds within the Birch Meadow Complex area. This project will expand upon the improvements that we are doing in the area, including the recently completed Complete Streets pedestrian improvement project along Auburn Street and Parkview Road that included the construction of a sidewalk and ADA and AAB compliant curb ramps and crosswalks. In addition, we are working on a larger master plan for the Birch Meadow Field improvements, which will help improve accessibility to all throughout the area. Together, all of these projects help achieve our goals of improving safety for students at these schools. The project we are discussing today is a welcome improvement in the area. I will now pass the presentation over to Mike Doobie from TEC, who will get into the project specifics. Mike?
Thanks, Chris. We are, as designers of the project, we're also very excited about the improvements that this project brings to the area. So taking a step back, let's talk about how we got to where we are at today. Back in February of 2023, this project was approved by MassDOT and initiated under the Safe Routes to School program and then the statewide transportation improvement program. This approval allowed MassDOT to select a designer and proceed with the design process. In January of 2024, TEC and MassDOT sat down to scope the project. Once the project was approved, TEC was brought under contract, and in October 2024, the project survey was completed and the design process officially began. In March of 2025, TEC submitted the 325% submission for review. From there, the design was advanced with input from both the town and MassDOT, and a 25% submission was made in July 2025. That brings us to today's public hearing, where we're presenting the 25% design. So now getting into the project background, we'll explain why this project was initiated. The image on the screen shows the limits of the project. The project begins at Longfellow Road in the south, and it extends approximately 1,700 feet along Oakland Road to Birch Meadow Drive in the north. Primary focus of the project is the area in front of the area of Oakland Road adjacent to Reading Memorial High School. Oakland Road today is a two-lane roadway with parking on both sides and sidewalks on both sides as well. The existing cross-section of the roadway lacks sufficient infrastructure, pedestrians, bicyclists, and there are excessively wide travel lanes which promote high speeds. Due to the on-street parking, four sight lines pedestrians looking across the roadway also exist. The excessive pavement area also means that there are excessively long crosswalks along Oakland Road. In addition, the intersections of Birch Meadow Drive and Longfellow Road lack logical terminations of pedestrian facilities at the project limits. At Birch Meadow Drive, there are also conflict points between existing crosswalks and vehicle staging areas that create additional safety concerns for students walking and biking to school. The next two slides highlight some of the conditions that I just mentioned through images taken along the corridor. The image on the left is taken at one of the mid-block crossings. This image highlights the lack of sightlines for pedestrians staged across the street to vehicles traveling on Oakland Road. The current condition requires pedestrians to step into the roadway to be able to see vehicles and determine if it is safe to cross. The image on the right shows the lack of technical warning panels and ADA compliant facilities that exist within the project limits. This slide has two additional photos that show the existing conditions at Birch Meadow Drive. These photos highlight the conflict between pedestrian and crosswalks and the vehicle staging area. Today, vehicles stage in front of the crosswalk, which creates an unsafe condition for pedestrians looking to cross Oakland Road. While there is a pedestrian refuge island that allows pedestrians to cross one side of traffic at a time, the crosswalk placement means vehicles have priority through this area. The existing island also does not have the appropriate warning panels that indicate when pedestrians are entering the roadway. So understanding the purpose of the project and the existing conditions, what do we want to accomplish? With this project, the overarching goal is to improve pedestrian and student safety and mobility throughout the project limits. We're looking to implement a complete streets approach that will prioritize pedestrians and bicyclists. This approach includes the installation of a designated space in the form of a shared use path for both pedestrians and bicyclists through the project limits and for access to Reading Memorial High School. We're also improvements to both Birch Meadow Drive and Longfellow Road intersections that prioritize pedestrian and bicyclist movements and provide logical access points to the shared use path. I'll get into these in more detail on a future slide. Finally, the project will provide improvements that connect to other recent improvements in the area, including complete streets improvements at Parkview and Birch Meadow Field improvements that Chris recently mentioned. So what do these proposed improvements actually look like, and how do they meet the project goals? Proposed improvements include performing a road diet along Oakland Road and utilizing the additional space to install a 10-foot shared use path with a 5-foot buffer along the western side of the roadway. The road diet will narrow the existing 16-foot travel lanes to 11 feet to promote slower speeds throughout the project limits. The existing on-street parking lanes will be maintained and will be striped to 8 feet wide. The sidewalk along the eastern side of the roadway will be reconstructed to be ADA compliant and provide ADA compliant pedestrian crossings. The roadway will be resurfaced and new pavement markings and signage will be installed. Finally, the intersections of Birch Meadow Drive and Longfellow Road will be reconstructed to prioritize pedestrian and bicyclists crossing. The below image provides a representation of the roadway cross-section that highlights what Oakland Road will look like after this project is completed. The next two slides highlight the improvements along the corridor. I'll quickly step through the improvements as mentioned and highlight a couple of key areas. This first graphic shows a rendering of Oakland Road from Longfellow Road to just south of the western school driveway. As you can see, the rendering shows a shared use path beginning at Longfellow with new pedestrian ramps and sidewalk connections for access to the path. Continuing along the roadway, we're providing minor modifications to the curb lines at all side streets to minimize the crossing distances and provide curb bump outs for any crosswalks across Oakland Road. I'll leave this slide up for people to take a look at for a few seconds. As previously mentioned, within this section of Oakland Road is Parkview Road, where new sidewalk and ADA improvements were recently completed. The second rendering shows a continuation of the improvements shown on the first slide. It begins just south of the western school driveway and continues along Oakland Road to Birch Meadow Drive. As you can see, the rendering shows the shared use path continuing along the west side of the roadway in front of the school, and it also shows additional curb bump outs at each of the mid-block crossings. Project limits terminate at the northern limit of Oakland Road, Birch Meadow Drive, which I'll speak to that intersection in more detail in a future slide. The project is focused on bicyclists and pedestrian safety and mobility through the area. So the next few slides will provide some zoomed-in graphics of the specific improvements to reiterate how the proposed improvements meet the project goals. This first rendering highlights the implementation of curb bump outs along Oakland Road. There are 4 crossings within the project limits and 2 additional crossings at Longfellow and Birch Meadow. This image shows the 2 crossings at the southern school driveway and Hillside Road. Curb bump outs are critical infrastructure elements that improve sight lines between vehicles and pedestrians waiting to cross these locations. The changes in the curb lines help to highlight the crossings for motorists, while also providing delineation for parked vehicles and staging pedestrians in front of these vehicles. The bump outs also significantly minimize pedestrian exposure to vehicle traffic by minimizing the lengths of the crosswalks. We also touched on the improvements at Birch Meadow Drive at a high level. This graphic provides a blow-up of these improvements. There are several features worth highlighting in this image that help to meet project goals. First is the location of the crosswalk and reconfiguration of the curb lines. The crosswalk has been shifted to be in front of the stop bar, which is standard practice and allows pedestrians to cross when vehicles need to stop. This is a major improvement over the existing condition where the stop bar is located after the crosswalk. Along this approach, there's also a defined 2-lane section for both vehicles taking a left turn and a right turn. This maintains a similar condition as existing, provides storage for both movements, understanding the benefits of this configuration for school drop-off and pickup and other events in town that utilize the high school. Shared use paths are provided on all sides of the intersection with bike ramps for access to the path that continues down Oakland Road. Finally, the curb line on the northern side of the intersection, which is on page right, is bumped out to provide space for a shared use path and provide delineation for the parking on either side of the intersection. It also opens up to allow for access for bikes to get onto that path and cross safely over to Oakland Road. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Nancy Knight, representing MassDOT's Municipal Right-of-Way Community Compliance section, to discuss the property impacts of the project.
Thank you, Michael. When the Commonwealth, acting through its Massachusetts Department of Transportation Highway Division indicated it would accept this project for funding, the town of Reading accepted certain responsibilities. One of these responsibilities is acquiring the necessary rights in private and public lands for the design, construction, and public use of this project. My function is to review and recommend procedures that the town of Reading will use in acquiring these rights. The procedures used must comply with both federal and state regulations. Affected property owners' rights are protected under Mass General Laws, primarily Chapter 79. And because this project is receiving federal funds, the property owners' rights are further defined under Title III of the Real Property Act of 1970 as amended. The 25% preliminary right-of-way plan submission indicates that the project requires 0 fee acquisitions, 15 permanent easements, and 16 temporary easements. Please understand, however, that right-of-way plans are subject to change as the project design progresses. The property owners impacted by this project will be contacted by the Town of Reading municipal officials who will present the proposed impacts to each owner and discuss the methods by which the needed rights for the project may be acquired. Frequently, municipalities will appeal for donations to minimize the acquisition cost for the community. Donations, however, are not required, and property owners are entitled to appraisal, review appraisal, and just compensation. Right-of-way documents will be provided to each owner to help them understand the acquisition process and how the project affects their property. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Nancy. So let's look at the project from an environmental perspective. For this project, we'll be submitting a request for determination of applicability, or an RDA for short, for work within the wetland buffer zones at Birch Meadow Drive intersection. No direct impacts to the wetlands that exist are proposed. The RDA will be submitted to the Town of Reading Conservation Commission and coordinate with MassDOT Environmental. We'd also like to note the Article 97 properties that exist at all 3 corners of the Birch Meadow Drive intersection. These properties are open space properties that are restricted to modifications of use. At this time, we are not proposing any permanent impacts that would require additional permitting for these properties. Now looking forward to when this project will be constructed. The project is anticipated to begin construction in 2027, with the majority of construction happening during the summer months to minimize impacts to the school. During construction, access will be maintained to all residences, although short-term closures will be required to complete the sidewalk and driveway work. Similarly, short-term travel lane and parking restrictions will be required to complete any work within the roadway. All lane modifications and short-term closures will be closely coordinated by the contractor with the property owners, Town of Reading DPW, and the police department. At the end of each workday, the lanes will be reopened to reestablish normal traffic patterns. A MassDOT full-time resident engineer will be appointed to the project and will be on site. It's also worth noting that night work is not anticipated for this project. Now I'll turn it back over to Hario from MassDOT.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we would like to acknowledge the presence of the stenographer is a Getira Coating Dutch. She's from the Advanced Court Reporting. She's the one doing the stenography for us. After tonight's meeting, the next steps on the project are as follows. The public has 10 business days to contact MassDOT to raise questions, concerns in response to the VDPH, preferably via email. The correspondence will include all information we need as part of this hearing, and you will receive response as soon as possible. Then the subsequent 100% design, final plans, schedule and estimate will be completed during 2026. The advertising date is tentatively scheduled for late fall 2026. The construction phase is anticipated to start by early 2027. We estimate the total project will cost approximately $3.5 million. Federal funding, with Federal Highway Administration funding 80% and MassDOT funding the remaining 20% of the total construction cost. This project must be programmed in the statewide Transportation Improvement Program in the appropriate federal fiscal year in order for MassDOT to solicit bids for eventual construction. The total estimate cost of the project does not include any right-of-way acquisition costs. So I will keep you informed. A handout route has been prepared and posted to the MassDOT website along with this presentation. If you would like to retrieve the handout route now, you will find documentation which may be useful to you in understanding the project and submitting formal comments in response to this presentation. Moving forward, you will see that the notice of design public hearing is included on page 2 of the handout route. This notice appeared in the Daily Time Chronicle and the wedding on December 3rd, 2025 and December 10, 2025. So how to reach out? So any feedback we receive today and after this meeting will be compiled and evaluated. Please keep in mind the project we just presented is still in the design stage. All your questions and comments will be taken into consideration when completing the project design. To reach out, please submit email comments to MassDOT Project Management at dot.state.me.us and put a subject Project Management project file number 613564. For project information, visit MassDOT upcoming event for Highway Division website at www.mass.gov/highway-division/events or use the QR code on your screen. Also, you could submit written comments to Carrie Lavallée, PE Chief Engineer, MassDOT, 10 Park Plaza, Boston, Massachusetts, 02116. Put the attention of Project Management, project file number 613564. Now, I will turn the presentation to Miranda, so for the questions and answer part of the presentation tonight. Also, it will be Adi, please, you go in the one enter the question and answer for this presentation. Adi, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Do we have anyone from Legislative Affairs who's gonna do the
Yep.
Okay,
Hi.
thank you, Dan.
Yep. Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Fielding. I work with MassDOT Government Affairs. Typically, before we do the general Q&A, we just like to acknowledge any officials that are in attendance tonight. I did see Reading Town Manager Matthew Cornelis, so I didn't want to put you on the spot, but if you'd like to make remarks, you can raise your virtual hand now.
So you can unmute yourself, Matthew, and you can ask your question or comment.
Okay, hi, yep, Reading Town Manager Matt Cornelis. Thank you very much for the presentation tonight. I've been following this project for a while. I remember walking the site early with TEC and officials of the town. I think that it's going to be a big improvement for our area down there and a real safe route to school for kids and for adults, going down there as well and dropping kids off. I am eager, though, to hear comments from the neighbors down there. Hopefully, there's neighbors on tonight, especially when it comes to, excuse me, some of the easements that are required that we'll be seeking as our part of the project. We hope to have a minimum impact on the neighborhood and property rights, but so that's something that's important to me. But other than that, I think, from what I've seen tonight, we're on the right track. I wanted to thank, MassDOT for their participation and also the engineers from TEC and town officials from engineering DPW that were involved. So I'll turn it over. I think there may be some select board members on tonight, and I'd like to hear from them as well if they wanted to speak, and certainly from residents. So thank you very much, though, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Town Manager. So I was going to turn it back over to Addie because I didn't recognize any officials myself, so I apologize. But you're more than welcome to Q&A, which I'll turn back over to Addie now. Thank you.
I don't know if you have to give an opportunity to Nancy. Nancy, could you please clarify, add something to what Matthew just said about the easement? Or Mike?
Hi,
So
yeah,
for the easement, you have some advice to share?
well, yeah, we will be doing, we'll be working with the town, probably Matt, after the meeting and going through the whole acquisition process and explaining how we will be contacting the property owners, or they will be contacting the property owners. So we'll go through the whole process with them
Okay.
after this meeting. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did see a member of the select board that have their hand up. If Karen Herrick wanted to speak.
Thank you very much. I concur with Matt's comments. This is a great, very clear presentation, and this is a safety project that's much needed that we, began working on a number of years ago. So this is terrific. And I would also echo his comment. I am surprised looking at the project that we might need to get some easements, considering we talked about it generally being a roadway narrowing. So I'm looking forward to more information on that as well. And then I'm interested in that. I'm a little surprised a traffic light of some sort wasn't proposed for the intersection at the bottom of Oakland and Birch Meadow. And I'm not saying either way what my opinion is on that, but is it the conclusion of the DOT that this intersection can be brought up to safety standards without implementing any kind of lighting? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike Doobie, you have something to add to respond?
Yeah, I can respond to that. I appreciate the input. I think as we kind of mentioned, we're going through the design process right now and are looking forward to going through some of those details related to easements and traffic and all that stuff at Birch Meadow. Speaking specifically about the easements, most of those that are proposed right now are very minor sliver easements to meet the requirements of ADA's clear width requirements for the sidewalk around the utility poles on the south side. So when we looked at the project, we were avoiding relocating all the utility poles on the south side, and it was leaving less than the 4-foot required width. So we had to bump the sidewalk around those poles to get the appropriate width from an ADA requirement. We're definitely open to looking at those in detail, each one of those closely with the individual property owners in the town to discuss what that means for each property owner. As far as Birch Meadow, I know early on during the pre-25% to 25% design stage, we met with the town engineer and some of the town officials to discuss the approach to that intersection because of the nuances with school drop-off pickup, some of the town events, and just the how it operates today and what the preferred design would be. Also, as part of the process, we went through what's called MassDOT's ICE evaluation, which is the intersection control evaluation process. And at that time, that evaluates kind of all the options for the intersection and the triggers for a signal, the triggers for no signal, always stop, things like that. And during that process, it was determined that a signal wasn't warranted at the location. Although that's something that we can go into in more detail with the town and provide that information to make sure that we're moving forward in the correct direction.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. So at this time,
I'm
we want to
sorry,
go.
Eddie. I spoke too soon again. I got one last member of the board with their hand up, is Melissa Murphy.
No worries. Okay. All right, Melissa, you can speak now.
Hi, thank you so much. I appreciate this presentation tonight. I will be honest, and I'm newer to learning about this project. But I do have a couple questions. I guess I'm a little surprised that we wouldn't have spoken to residents about any easements that might be required before doing design. So I'm a little surprised by that. I think we should have gotten their input before we presented this because it may be a waste if they're not going to agree to an easement. So I'm very surprised by that. And the other thing I'm surprised by is, in theory, I think this is a great idea. And if I'm reading and looking at the presentation correctly, like we're just expanding the sidewalks to narrow essentially the street to hopefully slow down the speeds. And, it's being presented as a safer route for walking and biking for our students, which obviously I'm fully in support of. But this is one street in an extremely busy area. So I just, I'm a little concerned that this is not really a reality of changing the dynamics and making that area safer for our students to bike and walk to school, because it is only one street in a very densely populated area during school pickups and drop-offs. We have 3 schools, a YMCA, and fields right there. So I'm a little concerned that, we might be fixing one problem, but are we creating other problems? So I would just like some feedback on that. And then also some feedback on why we wouldn't have spoken to residents prior to design.
So, Mike, I think you perform some traffic analysis. Okay, so you could share. So it's not just coming like that. There is some study you perform before doing that, if you go in detail with that.
Yeah, I can talk about the easements and just the design process and how that all lays out. I think the reason we're sitting down today and the reason this design public hearing is set immediately after this design stage is so that we don't get too far into the design where we're getting feedback from, say, property owners and butters at a late point. So what we've done up to this stage is to vet out a feasible design process and a feasible design that had buy-in from several different people to figure out what we wanted along the corridor. And once we got to that stage where we were comfortable with the design, now we're kind of presenting the impacts, and we can discuss those in details to figure out if there's modifications that are needed based off different abutters input and things like that. So we're not far enough along the design where those changes are completely out of the question. I think that's exactly the point of today's meeting, is to get that input and have those conversations with property owners and initiate that discussion so that we can implement any changes that are needed at future design stages. But we had to do our initial kind of preliminary concept and design development to figure out what the best approach to the area was from our professional opinion. I think for the bigger extensive network, Chris, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I know we mentioned a few projects in the area, the Parkview Road 88 improvements that were just recently completed. I know there's a bigger master plan that's been discussed for the area that we're hoping to tie into with this Oakland Road project. I don't know if Chris, you want to talk about some of those things that the town's looking at.
Yeah, sure, Mike. As you said, we just completed the Parkview Road in Auburn Street sidewalk improvements as part of the Complete Street program. We're doing the multiple phased improvements to Birch Meadow Field in that area now. And so this is just another kind of piece of the improvements out there, looking at, reducing the overall width of Oakland Road and making at least this road anyway a little bit safer for pedestrians in the area.
Thank you so much for that. All right.
Just one more thing. So, I mean, Oakland Road is, I would say, a small piece of the issues over there. And, in Park, the Auburn and Parkview, I mean, those really they're traveled in the morning, but really the bigger issue is the Birch Meadow and going down to Birch Meadow School and going over to Coolidge and the YMCA. I mean, I just see those as bigger concerns with the amount of children and parents and cars. And I just feel like we're gonna, not that I don't want to see an improvement to Oakland Road. I'm just a little concerned that this one improvement really is a false sense of safety for the kids biking and walking to school in that area. That's all.
So what I could add, this project is a safe route to school project. So this project usually initiated from the school or from the town because there is a need for that. And so the most focus on this is a safe route to school. It's just basically to make kids going to school after that around a safer. So, and that maybe is part of the master plan the town of Reading is working on, but so I don't know, maybe there's other project coming in the future, but this project is mostly addressing a issue to make kids safer going to school. And this is what we try to address tonight.
Thank you so much, Harriet. And now I will go into the question and answer procedures. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. To be unmuted, you can do Alt-Y if you're using a phone. You can also use the Q&A to submit your questions. There's a Q&A button in the lower tab of the computer. Please state your name before your question. Please share only one question or comment at a time. Please use only about 2 minutes so that others can have a chance to participate. To ask a question via phone, you can dial *9 and the moderator will call upon you, the last 4 digits of your phone number, and you'll be allowed to ask a question. All questions and comments are subject to disclosure for public records. Please use these functions for project businesses only. And now at this time, we will go into the Q&A session right now. I'm going to read a question from the Q&A. It's Carrie Martel. And she asks, will sidewalks be added on Longfellow Road? If so, will it be from Western Road to Oakland Road?
I can handle that one. Yep. So there are improvements being made directly at the intersection of Longfellow Road with Oakland Road to install sidewalks and crossings on all three approaches. The project limits are currently isolated to that intersection and don't extend down to the other roadway that you were referring to.
Thank you for your answer. So we have another question from Colleen Lacey, who asks, "Hi, thanks for this presentation. My family and I live on Beacon Street, and we use Parkview every day to cut over to Birch Meadow and Coolidge Meadow. The crosswalks at Parkview and Oakland are nice to see in the design. One thing I wanted to bring up is that cars come up Oakland toward Parkview quickly. There is limited visibility, and I was hoping that there is a way to make those crosswalks safer and more visible for not only pedestrians, but motorists too. See, something more than the road diet. Has anything else been considered? Flashing lights to push, etc.?
That's a great question. I think Oakland Road in itself is very steep in areas, which definitely creates some of those sightline issues that you're referring to. We originally did evaluate flashing beacons, although they technically did not meet the warrants. It's something that we have considered during this project and can continue to consider if there's significant safety concerns, as you kind of indicate.
Thank you for that answer. We also have a question in the Q&A from Kirk McCormick, who asks, "Why is the rest of Longfellow Road not getting sidewalks under this project? Longfellow Road is a major pedestrian access point to the high school that currently does not provide safe access to Oakland, as it has no sidewalks and cars are frequently parked on the street. Any project intended to provide safety pedestrian access to the high school needs to provide a safer method for pedestrians to travel Longfellow Road to the proposed crosswalk at Oakland Road. At a minimum, Longfellow Road should have sidewalks along its length."
Thank you for the question. Right now, the project is limited to the intersection at Longfellow and Oakland Road, and we're definitely looking at improvements for connections there. Currently, the extending the improvements down Longfellow Road is beyond the scope of these improvements, but can be further discussed with the town.
Thank you for your answer. We have Jennifer Riley. You may unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi there. I live close to Oakland Road. And first of all, Melissa, thank you for saying what you said about the residents. I'm kind of concerned with the residents as well, especially since you don't have a confirmed list of abutters that are going to be affected by this work. So for you to say we only have 10 days to respond from once this presentation is done, and we don't even know who is going to be exactly affected, I think that needs to be extended.
So, and the 10 days is to be part of the public record. So you could send any time, any comments, you are welcome. So it's something we are welcome to receive from a stakeholders. But the 10 days I was referring to is only to be part of the public official record. So, and what I said before, so is an ongoing process. So we continue to reach out to everyone, and if you need to see more details about the plan, I think it should be available at the town. You could go and you could see the plan to see how you will be affected if you need more detail about that.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you could reach out to the town and we provide a set of plan. You could keep in touch with them and you could go there and see the impact on your property.
So we have Jonathan Weber. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. You can go ahead and speak, Jonathan. But we cannot hear you. I see that you're unmuted, Jonathan, but we still cannot hear you. Okay.
How about
I'm
now?
gonna, okay,
How about
yes, we
there
can
you
hear you
go.
now.
Sorry about that. First of all, back to Longfellow. Having been at the high school and had extensive visibility of what happens at 3:05 in the afternoon and first thing in the morning, being in the neighborhood, Longfellow is the major traffic route for the kids in and out of school. They come there and then they go in the pack entrance and they go down the hill. So Longfellow should definitely be looked at very soon for either a sidewalk or an improvement. To Melissa's point, this project was touted as something for Coolidge, and it doesn't connect to Coolidge. So I'm a little confused by that, where we get to the bottom of Oakland Road and it just stops. There are markings that kind of show a bike lane on Birch Meadow Drive, but that's pretty much parked in during drop off and pickup. So I'm trying to figure out the logistics here. By the way, I appreciate the presentation. I like what's being done. I'm very concerned about the fact that, you know, we're creating an interesting traffic pattern for a bunch of drivers that have experience under 2 years of driving when it comes to the kids at the high school. The drop off and the pickup right now, I would highly recommend everybody here go sit from 8 a.m. to 8:30 and from 3:05 to 3:30 and look at the traffic patterns, because I think we're missing something. It's not being addressed here with this project. And as far as the bike lane goes, I understand it's all about bike lanes and creating walking paths. The only folks that are really going to use that are people walking their dog. And I don't feel like you've got enough traffic when it comes to bikes going up and down that hill. The kids avoid the hill, they go around. They're not going to go up and over the hill. That's just the way kids are. So that's my input on this. I do have questions about the amount of money that the town is going to spend on this project, which is always a concern. I did see that it looks like 100% is being covered except for the easement situation. And I'd like to hear more about that as we move forward with the project. Thank you all for your time. That's my input. I just think that we're solving part of a problem. And it's almost as if you're healing one part of the body and the rest of the body is where the problem is, because the real issue is down on Birch Meadow Drive when it comes to the middle school and traffic and where the kids are riding their bikes. They go around. They're cutting through the Birch Meadow complex and coming out onto Hartshorn Street and Bancroft Road. They're not going up and over that hill. So I feel like we are addressing something that is never going to be used. So that's my input. I do love the design of it all. I just hope that we can look at using money in other spots. One last thing, I think we need to address the other end of Birch Meadow Drive where it connects to John Carver. That is an extremely dangerous curve. And I think that the improvements that could be made there could really help, hopefully save a life someday and keep us all safe. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the input, and I'm looking forward to seeing the project progress. But I would like to hear more about the cost of what this is going to be to the town from an easement standpoint of view. And I'd also like to hear if Public Works could address, is there going to be any more expense to the town from a maintenance standpoint of view? And I'm thinking snow removal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, again, it's not a town project. So this project, as I said before, is a San Francisco project. It's a safe route to school project. So when this project was originated, so there is a request, there is a need, and we try to address this need. So we will take in consideration your approach, and maybe I will check if maybe there's other project on the pipeline for the location you were talking about, but I could not speak about any other major project going on Reading, but maybe they're already on the pipeline. But for this project, we'll take in consideration what you just share with us, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you, Harry. We have a question from Liz Sullivan, who asks, is there a way to slow down the cars that are heading up Oakland from Birch Meadow Drive that turn into the first entrance of the high school very quickly, often ignoring pedestrians that are at or in the crosswalk?
I can handle that one. I think that's a great question. As kind of previously mentioned, there's definitely some severe slopes within the project limits along Oakland Road. We could take a closer look at that area to determine if there's a possible solution. I know the goal with the road diet and 11-foot lanes is that generally sees benefits in vehicle speeds due to the narrowed lanes, and then the addition of the curb bump outs will also represent a narrower street for people to drive through. So both of those are traffic calming measures for vehicle speeds. But we can definitely take another look at some of those driveway areas, figure out if there's other solutions to further enhance the travel speeds and vehicle speeds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have a question from Merle and Michael Rosla. Are the drawings and other engineering documents available online? Mike Rosla.
The documents for the right-of-way, which shows the entire design, has been sent to the town DPW. So they have those on record. You can request those from them, or I think you can also reach out through the MassDOT contact information. Either or is the best way to get those plans information.
Thank you. All right, we go back to the Q&A. I'm into the hands raised. Let's see. Jennifer, if you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Okay. Let's try. So Catherine, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello. I just wanted to say that I do agree with what some other people are saying. We don't see a lot of foot traffic walking up the hill. But I do think those curb bumps, I forget exactly what you called them, coming out, will be much safer for the kids crossing the street all up and down Oakland Road. I understand what everyone's saying about Longfellow, but I understand also this parameters of this project, and I'm happy something is being done. I understand the slowing of the cars is going to kind of be manipulated by squeezing them down. And based on what someone else had said regarding the young kids driving out of that parking lot, It's horrendous. And I do believe it's more dangerous because of the driving patterns of the people and less of the construction of the road. I think maybe a crossing guard at that intersection of the parking lot going out to Oakland Road or over on Hillside Road might be a good thing to look into for the town. But on a note of the project, my only question really is, will there be kind of like a cut made somehow to get from the parking lot up to Oakland Road directly out, not having to walk where the cars are? Like there's no stairs there right now. And I believe that that was kind of a missed opportunity for the school. But if they're putting in sidewalks and cuts, I see the kids walking up the grass all the time. So I didn't know if that was going to be taken in consideration, if that was one of the easements that was being considered. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. That path was something, the connection from the parking lot to Oakland Road, kind of in the middle of the parking lot there, was something we looked at pretty intensively during this early design process. Unfortunately, when we started to develop the design and due to the steepness of Oakland Road, it wasn't feasible to install a path that is ADA compliant through that section due to the elevation difference between the roadway and the parking lot and also the pitch of the roadway. So when we kind of had that conversation with the town early on to figure out what we could do, we're now rebuilding the existing sidewalk on the eastern side of the parking lot to make that entirely compliant as part of the project, but the path connection through the parking lot would not be feasible to construct in a compliant, ADA compliant way.
Thank you for your answer. And at this time, we don't have any hands raised and we don't have any questions and answer right now. So Harry, if you want to go over how they can reach you and write in with comments.
So, Mike, you have something to add? Dan Fleury, if you want to add something, no, Dan?
Not necessarily. Everything has been discussed, and as you said, the goal of this project is to focus directly in the vicinity of the school, and there's a limited amount of resources going into the Safe Route to School program, so we cannot really branch out of the limit of work, and but we are just at the 25% design. Any questions, any concerns, they reach out to the PM and they will be able to get it to the district, and during the reviewing process and the 75%, 100% stage, if we can accommodate any type of design that would be that would increase the safety of kids in the area, that would be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And also a base of the many comments we received tonight, we will see if we could add a PIM, so maybe a project information meeting at 75%. So we could go back again to you, to all of you, so with the improvement on this project. So maybe it's good to have to schedule a PIM at 75% to make sure we get the buy-in of everyone because this project is for the community, for the stakeholders. So we want to make sure everyone happy with this project. So again, thank you again for your time, for attending. Really appreciate that. So now is 7:05. So I would
Harry,
like
we
to.
have one question in the Q&A. She's referring to the link not working. So I'm trying to let her know that she can use the email. That should work. And also, if she goes to the state website and look for this DPH, you should be able to find it on the state website if you use this project file number. Thank you.
Thank you, Adi. Thank you so much. So we would like to thank MassDOT, the town of Reading, and other important network for the outreach effort. We thank all of you for attending this important hearing. So it's 5:06 now. I will adjourn this meeting, and I promise you we'll take in consideration all your comments, and hopefully we'll get a PIM, a project information meeting, after the 75% submission to make sure everybody have the input on that. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you so much. It's 7:06. I adjourn this meeting.